Okay, so this is our second video on probability, and this is aimed at both higher and foundation tier, and it's the idea of relative frequency. So we're going to just look at some examples to understand this. I want you to remember in your head that if something has a certain probability, it is 1, and if something is impossible, it has a probability of 0, okay? Those are the fundamental parts of probability that you need to remember, and this one particularly is going to be useful in here, okay? Right, so there are counters in a bag that are either red, blue, pink or green, okay? And they are given here in a table. Here are the colours, here's the probabilities of getting them. And then we've got to calculate the probability it's blue. Now this is the most basic relative frequency question that you might get, and it could come up in either higher or foundation. If you're doing, well, either of them actually, but particularly higher, I think that it's more likely you will be asked to do a slightly more complicated relative frequency one. So we're going to continue watching this video and then watch the next video, and hopefully that'll all become clear. Okay? Right, so if there are only red, green, pink and blue counters in a bag, that means these probabilities all have to add up to 1. Okay, so what do they add up to start with? Well, we've got 0.1. Now don't forget 0.1 is the same as 0.10, 0.10, okay? It's 10%. It's got an invisible 0 on the end, so don't be confused when you're adding them up. So when you add 0.1 and 0.25, you get 0.35, not 0.26. Okay, so be really careful when you're adding them up. Okay, so we're going to add all of these up. 6 and 5 is 11, carry the 1, 5, and 0 on the end. And so all of these add up to 0.51, okay, which means that this one is the missing one. That has to make it up to 1. So to find that one, we then need to do 1, take away 0.51, which is 0.59. So the probability it's blue is 0.49. I think I just said 59, I meant 49. Okay, 0.49. Now, it's really important, some of you will just see that, you'll look at this table and you will just see the answer, okay, but it's really, really important that you show all your working, you show that you're adding it up, you show that you're taking it away, okay. If you do not write this step, you will lose a mark, okay. Right, part B of the very same question. There are 750 counters in total. Estimate how many are red. Now this estimate is only because it is probability. It's not because we start needing to round things, which is if you've done estimation in rounding, that's a different thing. This is because it is based on probability, okay? So for example, when you toss a coin, you can either get a head or a tails, and that you get an equal chance of both. So that suggests that if you toss a coin twice, you'll get one head and one tail. But obviously, in reality, that doesn't always happen. Sometimes you might get 2 heads and you might get 2 tails. So the estimate is based because of probability. What we expect to happen isn't necessarily what actually does happen. Okay? Right, so there are 750 counters. Estimate how many are red. Okay, so the probability that a counter is red is 0.1. Now, I already talked to you about what that means. That means 0.10. I would like you, because then you'll be able to do it in non-calculator and in calculator, to think what that is as a percentage. That as a percentage is 10%. So that means that 10% of the counters are red. So if there's 750 counters in total, let's just find 10%, and then 10% must be red. Okay, so 10% of 750. Don't forget to find 10%, we divide by 10, so 750 divided by 10, which is 75. So that is how many we expect to be red, 75. Okay. The alternative method you might want to use is you do your number of counters times by your probability. So we're going to do 750 times 0.1. Now that's fine if you're absolutely happy with how to multiply decimals really easily, or if it's in a calculator, that makes it nice and easy. Either way gives you the same answer. But this method of thinking as a percentage makes it much, much easier when it comes up in non-calculator. Okay? Right, our second question on this is here. There are pink, purple and yellow beads in a box. There are an equal number of pink and purple beads. If there are 800 beads in total, estimate how many are purple. Okay, now we're going to do this via algebra because I think you'll find that easier. and you'll be able to apply it to more complex questions. So if we start with algebra now, then it'll become much easier later on. Okay, so if there are an equal number of purple and pink bees, that means these probabilities have to be the same. So let's call them the same letter, they're going to be X. Okay, we know that all of these probabilities have to add to 1. So to find out these missing 2, I'm going to do 1 take away 0.44, okay? Make sure you are showing your workings every single time. And when we do 1 take away 0.44, we get 0.56, okay? Now, what that means is both of these have to add to 0.56, so 2x is 0.56. How do I get x on its own? I divide by 2, or I'm sharing that equally between those two. So I halve 0.56, which is 0.28. Okay, so that means the probability they're pink is 0.28 and the probability they're purple is 0.28. And you can just check if you want on your calculator, but this could be in a non-calculator, that they add up to 1, okay, which they do. Right, now it says that there are 800 beads in total. So this question hasn't led us through part A and part B like the last one. It's just given us a whole question in one, okay? But I didn't even really read this bit. All I did to start with was work out these missing probabilities because that's really important. Okay, then it says, if there are 800 beads in total, estimate how many are purple. Okay, so purple, we've just worked out, has a probability of 0.28. Now I like to write that as a percentage, so I'm going to say, okay, that's 28%. I've got 800 beads in total. So I'm going to have to find, beads, not beds, I'm going to have to find 28% of 800. So 10% of 800 is 800 divided by 10, which is 80. 20% is going to be double that, 80 times 2, because it's 2 lots of our 10%. So 20% is 160. I'm then going to find 1%. So 1% of 800. Don't forget to find 1%, you divide by 100. So 800 divided by 100 is 8. And so then 8%, which is the missing bit I need, is 8 times 8, which is 64. So that means my 28% is going to be 160 plus 64, 224. So that means we're estimating that 224 beads are purple. Okay. Now it does get a bit more complicated. It can get a bit more complicated, okay? But if you're doing foundation, just let that sink in for a while and have a go at that. If you're doing higher, on to the next video.